Hey, everybody, welcome back to another week of the Fixate and Binge Podcast. This is another episode. We are in the throes of July. I hope you have had a very good July 4th weekend. I hope that you still have 10 fingers celebrating with Chinese sky candy. Be careful out there, okay? Be careful. I hope that you have all of your appendages, all your fingers, all your toes. Everything is where it needs to be. It certainly was in my house. So happy birthday, America. I know I said this last week, but happy birthday. 250 years. Let's see if we can make it another 250 years. I have two very talented, wonderful people. I spoke with them earlier this week, and it was just one of the best podcast discussions I've had. The back and forth, the banter, it was just so good. As you know, if you are listening to this podcast, that is my bread and butter. When I can sit down with creatives who are passionate about something and we just riff and we talk about what they're doing, their vision, their goals, that's something that I greatly, deeply enjoy. I'm fully invested in when it comes to movies and television and these forms of entertainment. I love having creatives on this podcast, and I hope that you enjoy hearing from them. My guest this week is Lauren Meyering. She is the writer and director of her debut feature film, HORSEGIRLS, and this stars newcomer Lillian Carrier, who is also a guest on this podcast, and you're going to hear from both of these ladies in just a moment. They have made this wonderful film. It co-stars Gretchen Mol, who I'm a big fan of, Boardwalk Empire, 3:10 to Yuma, these types of things. I can see why she picked HORSEGIRLS. It was a different kind of role for her, and she excels in this. And so this is an independent feature film. It opens next Friday, which is the 17th of July, HORSEGIRLS. It also co-stars Tony Hale from Arrested Development and Veep. And I think you're just really going to enjoy this film. It is based on a true story, based on true events, and there's a lot of love and a lot of heart in this film. I felt like I was getting an hour and a half long hug about hope, about keeping your chin up, and just remaining optimistic in the face of adversity and trials. And that really was what this film was for me. And you'll hear about it in just a minute, but I related to this film on a much deeper and personal level in my personal life. So there are some similarities, some elements in the film that touched home for me. And I hope if you're listening to this and you have an opportunity to see HORSEGIRLS, I think you may have a similar reaction. It is a tearjerker. It is it's funny. It's got its heart in the right place. And for a feature debut film, I mean, Lauren is fantastically talented here. But the newcomer here, the real revelation, this is her first, I believe her first starring film role. Lillian Carrier is neurodivergent. She's a neurodivergent actress, and she plays a neurodivergent character in this film, HORSEGIRLS. Folks, she is a standout. She blew me away. Her performance is genuine, authentic, all the things you want to say. She fired on all the cylinders, and I hope to see Lillian in future projects, other things. I really do. I feel like HORSEGIRLS is an announcement of two fresh talents in terms of film, and that would be Lauren Meyering and Lillian Carrier. I would love to see those two work together again. And if not, I'd love to see their careers take off because they were that impressive to me. But they're going to come on in just a few minutes, and I'm not going to dilly-dally much longer. I do need to go over a couple things that have been going on since we had our last episode. What has been happening is I went and saw the latest Evil Dead film in the Evil Dead franchise, and that, of course, was Evil Dead Burn, and it's directed by a French director who made a film a couple years ago that I really, really liked. If you have arachnophobia, stay away from this guy's film because I felt that this was the most realistic film about spiders I have ever seen. Ever. The greatest skin-crawlingly awful film on spiders. It's a French language film. It's called Infested, and it takes place in these apartment blocks in a kind of dilapidated, torn down suburb of Paris. And I don't know how they pulled this off. It looked like they used real spiders. It was hella creepy. And so I'm aware of this director. His name is Sebastian Vanacek. And so when I heard that Sam Raimi had tapped him to make the new film in the Evil Dead franchise, I got a little bit excited because I'm like, man, if Sebastian Vanacek can make my skin crawl in an Evil Dead film the way he did in Infested, and by the way, you can catch Infested on Shudder, and if you haven't watched it yet, and spiders don't give you nightmares, what's wrong with you? What is wrong with you? See this film. It's horrifying if you like that sort of thing. So I watched Evil Dead Burn, and holy cow, it was less of a viewing experience and more of an ordeal. I honestly think that someday we may have to go and see a therapist because we're going to have PTSD from watching some really awful, gory films. Now, I say awful, let me qualify that. I don't mean awful as in the sense that it was executed poorly or that it was cheaply done. I mean awful in the feeling you get watching people suffer. I mean, I compared it to the writings of St. Thomas Aquinas, his writings on hell. What a terrible thing to write about, right? But it was really horrifying. They pushed the envelope here. In my review for Letterboxd, and I encourage you to follow me, you just have to look up Fixate and Binge or Joe Curdy. I actually talk a little bit about this is a film that pushes the envelope and blurs the line between rated R and NC-17. That's the way I felt. This guy, Sebastian Vanacek, I don't know what he's doing for his cast making of this film, but he puts every member of his cast through HE double hockey sticks. It looked like a grueling thing to make, and it looked like, there was so much fake blood and viscera and practical effects. I will say that I'm impressed with the practical effects, as I have been with all of Sam Raimi's horror films, especially starting in 1981's, of course, the original Evil Dead, and then 1987's Evil Dead 2, and then Army of Darkness, and yada, yada, yada. So I appreciate the practical effects that go into this sort of thing. And, they didn't phone it in. Vanacek didn't phone it in. He seems to be a pretty big fan of the Evil Dead franchise, and he did a heck of a job, horrifying and scarring me mentally for life. This was, if horror is your thing, and I'll tell you something, some of you that might listen to this podcast wonder, wow, you have a disproportionate love for horror films, but you also really love and are passionate about independent features and family centered or heartstrung type stories. They could not be more different from each other, and you're absolutely right. I absolutely love independent films like Horse Girls and Kangaroo Island and some of these other things, like Honey June and some of the other films that I have reviewed and had some of the creators on this podcast. But I hold a special place in my heart for horror because that to me is the equivalent of getting on a very terrifying roller coaster, or getting on a roller coaster and hoping that it gives you thrills, some ups and downs, and makes your heart fall through your stomach, at times. I like it. It's cathartic for me. And it is like, it's how to explain, I love getting the hell scared out of me on a roller coaster. I like it. I really like it. Don't ask me why. For the same reason people jump out of planes or bungee jump or base jump or whatever the heck they do. Get on a wingsuit and go fly over the canyon. I like it. Horror does that for me as a genre more than any other genre of film. But having said that, I like to stay grounded, and I like to enjoy heartfelt, genuine, human type stories that celebrate the triumph of the human spirit, celebrates real people in real circumstances. So I love shows like The Bear, but I also love shows like Widow's Bay, It, Welcome to Derry, some of these other shows. I have a kind of a mixed taste there. And maybe you do too. Maybe you do too. And speaking of, shows like The Pit or The Bear or Widow's Bay, the Emmys came out. And I had said so far this year, the best new show I've seen in 2026 is Apple TV's Widow's Bay. And ta-da, it got a ton of nominations for Emmys. So it has officially been recognized as one of the great shows. If you listen to this podcast, man, let me toot my own horn here. I have good taste. I know that because I will watch stuff long before everybody else jumps on the bandwagon, long before the Emmys or the Golden Globes get announced. I'll start watching it. This happened with The Studio. It happened with the first season of the Pit. It's happened now with Widow's Bay, and it happened with The Bear because my former co-host and I talked extensively about season 1 and season 2 long before these shows were getting accolades and winning nominations and things. So if you value good taste, I'm not afraid to toot my own horn and say you are listening to someone with a finger on the pulse of what good taste is in television. Now, when it comes to film, it's a little bit more challenging. I don't see everything, and I wish I could. But anyway, I'm just so happy to see shows that I have talked about and celebrated on this podcast prior finally earn their flowers and get their nominations and get the recognition they deserve. For me, I'm like, yeah, I knew they were brilliant. I can recognize good writing. I can recognize good characters and good situations. And when the stakes get raised, and all of that is something I enjoy doing. I enjoy curating and commenting and evaluating good content out there. And there's quite a lot. There's also, unfortunately, quite a lot of bad content out there. Lots of things that waste your time. And if I had more time, I'd probably watch more bad television. But the truth is that I try and, like a water diviner, I try to kind of sense what I think is good. And you usually do get a sense of that after the first couple episodes of a new show. If you're not hooked after that pilot and you give it a second chance for that second episode, and if by the second episode you're just not engaged, chances are neither are critics. I just feel that way. And I feel like you, the listener of this podcast, or if you're watching this on YouTube, the viewer, I think you have a good idea of what makes good television. We may not always be able to define it or make a list of here's what makes good TV and here's what doesn't. We may not be able to actually get that myopic about it, that specific about what makes a great show and what makes a bad show. Because obviously, if there was a tried and true formula, everyone would do it and then television would never be bad. But the fact of the matter is that production values, inexperienced writing staff, weak production values for that matter, or when you have to rush, when a project feels rushed and they haven't taken their time with it. I, for one, am enjoying a show on Amazon called The Agency, starring Michael Fassbender and Richard Gere, and so it's well written. It's like Slow Horses, but it's less humor. It's more serious. The stakes are higher. But I also, speaking of Slow Horses, that got nominated again too. It never wins, but it's nominated. It's a continually great show. And I've talked about that on this podcast as well. So anyway, enough with me tooting my own horn and bragging myself up. I hope that you enjoy my recommendations. I hope you enjoy my perspectives. But without further ado, because I've chit-chatted too long and blown my own horn too much here, I want to just dive right into the conversation that I had with director-writer. I shouldn't say writer-director. I should say director/writer, Lauren Meyering, of the wonderful 2025 film HORSEGIRLS. It will be available in select cities. I think it'll have a limited release. And I think this film deserves all the love. So if you find this, and this is about this, this is HORSEGIRLS, check this film out. But like I said, without further ado, my interview with director-writer Lauren Meyering and her starring actress Lillian Carrier happens right now.
Are you actually in a movie theater?
I wish.
Okay, I'm like, there's no way. Your lighting wasn't quite matching, but also it's such a good image that was kind of selling it for me.
Yeah, I was I mean, before this, there was like a whole three-ring circus of my kids and my
Yep.
dog, and I'm
Yeah.
like, that's going to be a distraction. I'm going to
Yep.
actually, yeah. You're not the first person that's asked that, by the
It's a
way.
good photo. It worked.
Thank you, thank you. I've been tempted to fib and say, no, I've rented out a cinema for
Just
this
for this.
podcast.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! So you're Lauren, right?
Yep.
And below me, well, the way it's situated is Lillian. Is that right?
Hmm.
All right. Holy cow. Ladies, thank you so much for your wonderful film, Horse Girls. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it in a very emotional way. I'm a parent, I'm a father. My, oh, sorry, the feels. My son is neurodivergent and is almost the same age as Margarita in this. And as a parent, I am looking and anxious about some of his the future that he has when I'm not around to look out for him and to help guide or be overprotective or overdo it. And so as I'm watching Horse Girls, I'm trying to tell my wife that I'm chopping onions because it was so wonderfully executed. The writing is so good. I've got nothing but praise for this. So I hope you're okay with just hearing compliments and praise for this podcast.
Thank you. That means so much. Like so much. I really, really appreciate that.
From what I can gather in my review that I wrote, I haven't, it's not officially published, but in my review, it appears that the events in Horse Girls are inspired by real events or a real lived experience. Is that correct?
Yes, aside from the hobby horsing, that part
Right.
is false. But yeah, so Mackenzie Breeden, who is a producer on the project, it's based loosely and inspired on events from her family. Her sister Marguerite is on the spectrum and has a couple other disabilities. And at the time of writing it, her mom really was going through her third battle with cancer.
Right.
And her dad had unfortunately passed away in a car accident in 2016. And so it was when her mom got that third diagnosis that, you know, Mackenzie and I are best friends and we hang out all the time together. And she was just saying, she's like, you know what, she's like, I just never thought, it would happen so soon because unfortunately, yeah, it's tragic. She was in college when her dad passed, and then she hadn't even turned 30 when her mom got sick again. And she was like, this is something that you expect to happen when you're like 40 or, like just
Right.
obviously, you just never expect that. And she was like, I just honestly haven't thought about, thank God she has siblings, unlike our
Yeah.
main character. But she's like, I just never thought about having the caretaking thing happen so soon, and but at the same time, one of my favorite qualities about Mackenzie and also just her family in general is they are the definitions of like smiling through the hard times. And not only that, being able to like make people laugh, like even with how dark things can be. And like, there are just things that like Marguerite will say where she's just like, man, yeah, why'd this have to happen? Like this sucks, just so blunt and like so open about it. And so when I got to meet Marguerite, I was like, how has how have we not seen a movie through this lens specifically? And Lillian and I talk about it all the time where, there have been movies about people with autism, but a lot of the time they are very much like, wow, aren't they inspiring? Like, don't we, like
Right.
despite how awful it must be, where it just has this lens of just like it's not just from the perspective where your entire audience, neurodivergent or not, can just be in the character of Margarita with her to where in the beginning it's a little jarring where you're like, wow, this girl just burst into a doctor's office at the top of her lungs. But by the end, you're just like, you're so in it with her
Yeah.
that you're not even questioning the things that are coming out of her mouth. You're like, yeah, that's her, and that
Mhm.
was always the goal. That was always the goal. And then hobby horsing just seemed like a fun thing that I was like, how on earth has no one put this in a movie yet? So
Well, with any luck, hobby horsing might end up in the Olympics. I mean, it's
I have seen
competitively done.
this.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's competitively done. I have seen a viral TikTok of this lady doing an impossible jump over
Jump.
a, yeah, and I'm like, that's like a 5 foot jump. That I couldn't do that.
It's insane. It's actually, I'm like, it is a
Yeah,
full-blown athletic sport, and people need to recognize that.
I agree. If they could
Yep.
put breakdancing, if they could put
Yep.
breakdancing in the Summer Olympics, they can definitely put hobby horsing in. I mean, hobby horsing would be much
Amen.
more interesting to watch, I think, than
Honestly.
breakdancing. Well, I mean, thank you very much, Lauren, for that because you're right, especially as a parent of a child with who is neurodivergent, and we appear to have autism. It's not really. It's kind of a dark humor. The joke is it doesn't just run in our family; it practically gallops, which is
Yes.
kind of perfect for
Yes,
horses.
yes.
Because I have two nephews and a niece from my brother's family who are also on
Wow.
various levels of autism, and so we're very sensitive as viewers, as parents, as a family to how autism is represented in film. We don't, like you were saying, and I think you've got this, and your film gets it absolutely right. It doesn't fall into that mawkish, schmaltzy triumph over all the odds type, where you know what I mean, where it's formulaic and it's trying to wrench. I
Emotion.
want,
Yeah.
yeah, I want something that's real and authentic. And I got to tell you, Lillian, this one's for you. I was stunned by your performance in this. Open mouthed, stunned. I was amazed. You lived this character. I almost thought I was watching a biopic and you were playing the character because it was that believable. There was a part of me that didn't know your background in this. I didn't know. I'm like, if this person is not neurodivergent, if the actor is not neurodivergent, this is astounding. It has never been presented this realistically before. Needless to say, as a major film role, you crushed it.
Thank you so much. And like, yeah, that was, I mean, Lauren presented a challenge with this one. And yeah, it was a tough one, but like, I'm really glad that it came across the way we wanted it to, and I'm honored to have been able to play such a beautiful character. Yeah.
I appreciate that. I wanted to ask, were there elements of you that did you workshop this with Lauren? Did you guys kind of sit down with maybe Mackenzie and Lauren and try and bring things that you could bring to it? I just wanted to know what the collaborative process, creative process was.
Yeah, bringing her to life was very collaborative. So she is on a very different part of the spectrum from
Right.
me. And this has been the like character that's like the most different for me with autism that I've portrayed so far. And all my other projects are like bring yourself, but this one had someone it was inspired by. And yes, there are pieces of me in there as well as there are pieces of Lauren. But yeah, talking to Marguerite and her family as well as Lauren, like we all came together and we're really like dissecting a lot of it to figure out, especially like talking to Marguerite of like, what do you want people to see? What is important that's portrayed to you, and what don't you want? And you're
Right.
like, this is like me, but I don't want you doing that. What is your fears? And like breaking it down with her, and then coming together with Lauren of how are we going to do this in a way that honors her as well as like honors the story and gets that representation right for the audience.
Wow.
Yeah, they were just, and every step of the way, every scene, it was a big discussion on set to make sure everything was right, as well as we brought on Chloe Estelle, our autism sensitivity coordinator, and Alex Plank, our autistic producer, so that we had multiple viewpoints and multiple voices going and making sure the representation was done in a way that is authentic and it isn't just, Lillian sees it this way and that's the only way autism is.
Right.
Like we wanted it like a bunch of perspectives in the community to be able to see something. And yeah, I feel like she's a character we haven't seen this part of the spectrum portrayed in. To have a character, I feel like autism is so wide and we're only seeing these very narrow specific parts of the spectrum. Like, we need characters like this because everyone's so.
I appreciate that. And I think the key word, the operative word that I bring up for people who might not know enough about autism, the operative word that I bring up is spectrum, because one can be on one far end and the other end. And so you need to open up your understanding a little bit, that autism comes in various different shapes and sizes. No one person with autism fits into a preset mold. There's so many different unusual and creative and amazing ways that people are neurodivergent, and we have to be open-minded and inclusive and just be understanding. And I appreciate that I didn't even know you had autism coordinators, which is just fantastic. That's so it's so assuring. It's so comforting to hear that you guys took very special care that community is represented appropriately and responsibly. That's fantastic. This question is for you, Lauren, about Lillian. And the question is, what made Lillian the right person in your mind to portray Margarita?
This is my favorite question.
Okay,
I just get to try and get people to understand how incredible she is. When she said this was not easy, I'm despite even if it was autism aside, even if it was just this other character, I'm to ask someone to do their own stunts, learn this very niche thing of hobby horsing when we couldn't even get people who'd done it as trainers because it wasn't even really in the US yet. Not only that, working with a cast of young girls from 10 to 15, many of almost, I'd say everyone except one, that was their first time on a set. And working it was such a marathon of a production. And I always joke too, where I'm like, man, I really did not make this easy, did I? All of that aside, I was like, I don't know anyone who could pull this off, let alone be in these situations where hey, there's going to be some bright lights on you. It's going to be loud as heck. You're going to be on wires floating in the air. And I need you to give a performance of a lifetime, basically. And then freaking God, the heavens opened up and Lillian Carrier appeared, because it was just it from her audition alone, you get the self-tape, you're like, wow, this is amazing, but it's a self-tape, right? So it's sure. For me, I want to know how can they respond to direction just in general, and how any actor does, and take it, and how can I say this concisely to tweak a performance. And in her callback, it was the trampoline scene with the mom, and she had rigged her camera above her, so she was laying on her back. And her camera opened up and I just was like, oh my gosh, because I already loved her, and then I was like, of course, and she did the performance beautifully. I wanted to keep it simple. I was like, let me just do one note. Let's see how we tweak it. And the way this girl can just hear a note and make it happen so effortlessly and nail it. It got to the point on set where I was like, I knew to start putting Lillian's close-ups last, because I knew she was going to nail it in minimum 1 or 2 takes, because she just has this superpower to get the context. She brought elements of herself. There was always something that she was, bringing up to me, but at the same time, in movies, you're always out of time. There'd be times when you're like, this is not an ideal circumstance, and I'd be like, how on earth am I expecting this poor girl to be like, hey, I'm gonna do a really long take of you singing American Pie. The click track in a silent room, the click track was not working, and I need you to cry. And I just remember on that day specifically thinking, I'm torturing this poor girl. And she's sitting there and she's like, okay. And then she gets up in front of a room of crew and extras, and just tears rolling down her face, makes a very funny sounding song just so heartbreaking, and nails it in one close up, and it's just it's a testament to who she is as a person, who she is as an artist, a performer, and just I don't know. It's like she has so many superpowers, but to me that was one that I'm like, I don't know if I've ever worked with an actor quite like her in the best way
Wow.
possible. So that is my favorite thing to answer is anything I can say to talk about Lillian because she just I really, 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 as I think most people would not expect this movie to have even happened. And
Yeah.
I really didn't know if I could find a Margarita. And then ironically, she was the third self-tape I watched. And
Wow.
it was meant to be. It really was.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is wonderful to hear. And if I'm not mistaken, from what you described with her tape on the trampoline,
Yeah.
you almost replicate that same over the trampoline. I mean, it sounds like did her tape inspire that shot or any of the way that was shot?
It was
No,
always
that was in the
in the
script.
script.
Which
Oh,
is
okay,
why I did it
okay,
that way. I
oh,
didn't
okay,
just go like I'm gonna do this scene lying down. No,
Yeah.
I
okay.
was like
'Cause
going through it with my acting coach. They were like, it's just a very different energy. I feel like you'll be able to perform it better
totally.
Yeah.
if you can rig it. And I spent a little time getting the camera because
Yeah.
it was just my phone. Like I
Yeah.
didn't have a rig. I don't have. So I like put it on the edge of a table and I was lying under it. And going, how does that look?
Yeah.
That's
And
cool.
it's funny because like there aren't I'm a director first, writer second, so I did have to cut a lot of things in the script of how I visually wanted it, but something
Yeah.
from draft one that stayed the same was always going to be overhead and then from high up above craning up to seeing the
Okay.
two figures small on the trampoline and like that was just something where it was like, yeah, that was the time we had a crane, where it was like
Yeah.
that shot, everyone was like, this is the shot of the movie,
Wow.
and so, yeah, that was something that stayed the same from day one, which I was so grateful for.
Well, there's so many elements in this film. I mean, that happens sometimes. It doesn't happen all the time, where all the elements, the writing, the acting, the direction, the editing, the music, the casting, where all of it comes together and everything is firing on all the cylinders. And that was an example that I saw in your movie was that all of that was happening. And that is a special moment, probably, to just see it whether you're watching the dailies or whether you're in the editing room and you're like, holy cow, it's all the pieces are coming together. I don't that has got to be a thrill that I think only directors can get when you're in the editing room and you're putting it together and it comes alive. I don't know
Yeah.
if is that a moment that you've had making this?
It's so funny you say that because maybe I'm just it's my born anxiety into my body to where I'm watching it and I'm going, is it working? Is it working? And the people next to me are like tears dripping down their face and I'm sitting here just going, does this work? And I'm like, maybe it's a little bit because it was my first film,
Yeah.
but there was a point where, you know, I think every director can relate. Watching the very first rough cut of the movie is probably the most torture you will ever go through, because it's a
Right.
direct representation of like all the ways you feel like you failed,
Yeah.
to put it super blunt. I will never forget. I mean, the turnaround for this edit was crazy
Wow.
fast. To try and get it into festival submission season, I had 2 weeks to edit the movie with with my editor, and so it was
2 weeks?
yeah. So when we were getting her
Wow.
footage as we were shooting. So when I arrived back from Portland, I had maybe one day of unpacking and I went straight to my editor's house the next day and she said, "Are you ready to watch the rough cut of your movie?" And sitting there, like I was already ready for torture. I was ready for failure. I was ready for this isn't going to work. I just wasted everyone's time and money. And I sat there with her and her co-editor, or assistant editor, and the thing finished and I kind of looked at her because I was like, I wasn't cringing nearly as much as I thought I would. And I wasn't like, and I actually was like, did that work? And she looked at me and she goes, "This is one of the strongest first cuts I've ever edited." And I was like, just hearing her say it, because you sometimes you're just in your head where I'm like, well, I don't know. I thought it was gonna be way worse. And then because obviously there's different things you want to change and stuff, but I remember looking at her and being like, are you just do you say that to everyone? Or are you trying to make me feel better because you know how anxious I am? And she was like, I really do. And then when we brought the producers in again, it was the nerves all over again. and they were like, wow, that was a strong first cut, because they have so much experience. And
Sure.
even with we did some audience test scores, and Sherman, one of our producers, was like, this is the highest test scores I've ever gotten for a first kind of round of a rough cut of a film. And so it was just like, not that I need the outward people to tell me, but sometimes you feel so internally like you're just like, I don't even know what to believe anymore, that having all of that was so reassuring in a way. It wasn't that I needed it, but it was reassuring that I wasn't crazy, that I was like, I think it worked, because we took every risk possible.
In college, I did something very ambitious and very stupid, but it was a life-changing experience. I decided to direct Hamlet as an undergrad in college.
Oh.
We rehearsed that thing for 4 months. By the end of it, we were all speaking in iambic pentameter.
Yes.
And I was so close to the project, and so I think this is why I'm thinking this. I was so close to the project that I didn't know if it was good or bad, because I could no longer be objective about it. Yes. I had to have a couple people that had not observed any of the rehearsal or anything sit in, watch a dress rehearsal, give me notes, and hold nothing back. What are you seeing? Yes. I'm wondering if that's the case with you. This is your baby, this is your project, you're so close to it. Are you able to see it objectively, or you don't know what to believe, right?
Yeah. The first time I think I actually was able to see it objectively, truly, fully, was with an audience. Wow. And I think that's the only way I will. Like, because if it's me on my own, I'm just going to be, thinking about like, oh, I could have done this better, I could have done that, or, whatever. I wish we had more time to do this. But right. When I watched it with a full audience of people in its final form, that was the first time that it was like I was able to finally switch that part of my brain off and objectively watch it as an audience member, which was a gift. Can I do it again? Not anymore. But that first time was pretty cool. It was pretty cool.
Well, as a debut film, first of all, I mean, Lillian, is this your first major film role?
It's first in film. I did a bunch of television before.
Okay. I'm not familiar with your television career, but as far as your presence, which is almost that intangible thing on screen, you can put two people in a room and one person will be a wallflower. They'll just slip into the background, and then there'll be that one person. They have this indefinable quality where they just command presence. And if this is your first film, you command film presence. You're electric. You lit up the screen. This was just, I'm surprised it's your first film. You seem like a seasoned in front of camera film veteran. That's the truth of it.
I appreciate that. I still feel like I don't know what I'm doing at all. I'm always on set going, what's going on? But I don't know. I feel like that's like how people improve. Like if you feel like you're an expert, like you're not working on improving your craft. I feel like this the best way to approach. It's like I'm still lost all the time, and I gotta keep working at learning it. So, but yeah, I was honored to be able to lead a project that people put faith in me with something like this, and fingers crossed that I can keep making stuff.
I hope to see you in many more things. And I appreciate that perspective of staying a little bit humble so that you're teachable. When we start telling ourselves, oh, I am amazing. I am the bee's knees, the cat's meow, and then it feels like there's no room to grow because you're too hung up on your own brilliance. And so I get that. I appreciate that. That is so good to maintain that quality and that attitude of I'm here to learn and absorb, and I'm not an expert on anything yet. So teach me. I love that.
If I win an Oscar for this film, I might change my mind about that.
Right? Maybe.
If nobody watches it, I'm the worst. If I get an Oscar,
well, at that point,
I'll believe I'm good.
Yeah.
I don't know which way it goes.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, you're like,
my
peers think I'm amazing, so it doesn't matter what I think.
They wouldn't lie to me.
Yeah, they wouldn't lie.
Socially unacceptable. That's the only thing I do.
Exactly.
Right. That's so perfect. I wanted to know, Lillian, if you could share with me what was the first thing that comes to mind that you connected with playing Margarita, not really as an autistic character, but as another human being? What was there anything that that character was facing or going through that you could be like, I'm there. I know how that feels. I can relate to that.
I mean, just so many pieces. I feel like this is such a relatable story in so many ways. I think figuring out where you belong in adulthood and that transitioning and like feeling like you're not ready to be adult. You don't know how to adult, and but you still want to be treated like an adult, right? I feel like so many people, no matter how old you are, you could be 80, you could be 18. It's
Sure.
hard to know if you're doing it right. I think the dynamic of mom and daughter was so beautifully done, so imperfect in the right ways of like how do you navigate that relationship and that power dynamic
Yeah.
and what that biggest fear of like what happens when mom is no longer capable of being mom, what does that mean? And I think for any parent and child relationship, uh, that's our biggest fear in both relationships of what happens then. And to have a story that says, we don't know what will happen, but it'll be okay.
Hmm.
I think is so beautiful and so wonderful. And then yeah, just finding your place in the world. Like where do you belong? What does that mean? I mean, just so many pieces.
That is I'm glad you explained that because just finding your place in the world and just to hear you say we don't really know, but it's going to be okay. I
Hmm.
I described in my review, I said this film inspires, but it also felt like, and this is for you as well, Lauren, it felt like a continual warm hug that,
Oh.
we don't have the answers and we don't have a crystal ball and we don't write the end of our stories. We are sometimes at the mercy of what happens to us. Most of the time, we like to have the control of being, I'm shaping events, and we have that moment. But there are some things that happen that are taken beyond our control, like Margarita's father tragically dying, like her mother succumbing to cancer after a long and painful battle. We don't know how it ends. I don't know how old I'll be able to look out for my adult son. I don't know if he'll feel lonely or have
Right.
someone looking after him that loves him as much as I do. I hope he meets somebody, and it doesn't have to be romantic, but just somebody who's going to look after him and care about him. I think
Hmm.
about that every single day as a father, and I have two daughters. I don't think about it as much with them, but I do about my son.
Hmm.
And I'm monologuing here, which isn't the purpose of this podcast. But I wanted to ask, I wanted to shift gears into the casting because I'd be remiss if I didn't talk a little bit about the brilliant performance and casting by Gretchen Mol and what that was like having her sign on to the project, Lauren.
Yeah, I first of all, I was in honor and I couldn't believe it. I'd seen so much of her work and
Yeah,
just, you have this, you watch someone and you see them in their work, but there is always that underlying question of like, but what are they like off the screen?
yeah,
And God, she could not have played a better Sandy. She just, in all the ways that Sandy was so fiercely overprotective and oftentimes on the page came off very, very harsh.
yeah.
Gretchen was able to do that and come from a place of so much love and empathy that it was such a perfect balance. And it was something we talked about so much that where she was like, I just don't want to come off like a villain, and like and just reading it on a blank, just on a document, you're like that it can at times it's kind of how she came off on the page.
Yeah.
And so she just did incredible work and like I told her, I was like, honestly, you just have these such expressive, kind eyes that just go so far into giving that, like, that underlying, just like everything she's doing is not to be mean or not to be like, oh, I'm gonna ruin Margarita's life. It's like it's all out of love and protection. And
Hmm.
that was just something that like I just was so grateful to have her not only just her talent, but her tons of experience to be able to do that so beautifully and work with a first time director, and be honest and be like, hey, like I need, I normally am not used to acting in these long takes like this, or, like,
Yeah.
and she gave me so much grace and trust, which was huge. Like I really, both of them, like, like entrusting me in like in the visual language of the movie and just like how I wanted to do it. And again, I did not set this up to be easy, clearly, but it was such a pleasure to work with her.
Wow. Wow. I've long admired her work.
Mhm.
One of my all-time favorite movies, and I know it's a remake, so it kind
Mhm.
of, but 310 to Yuma with Christian
Yeah.
Bale and Russell Crowe, and she's in that movie. And just that's one of my favorite. It was my grandfather's favorite movie before
Mhm.
he passed. And on his birthday, we watch it. We have steak
Oh,
and potatoes and we watch it. And Gretchen Mol's in that movie. And it's such an important pivotal part in that movie that she plays. Anyway, I could go on and on about Gretchen Mol stuff from Boardwalk Empire and on and on and on because
yeah.
she's so good. Well, listen, I am so thankful you guys have made this movie. Horse Girls is such a gem of a film. Well, I have so much more to say, and we have run out of time. So I wanted to thank my two guests. Lauren, thank you so much for your time today as a writer and a director making this wonderful film. Lillian, thank you for your incredible talents. The film opens next Friday. What is next Friday? What is that
July
precise?
17th.
July
July 17th.
17th. Thank you. The film is available July 17th. I don't know if it'll be in select cities or if it'll go for a wider release, but please look up Horse Girls. Wonderful film directed by my guests, Lauren Meyering, starring Lillian Carrier and Gretchen Mol. And I think bring tissues. That's all I can say.
Thank you. It's so nice to meet you.
Yeah, great to meet you guys too. Okay, and that was my interview with director writer Lauren Meyering and Lillian Carrier. So many highlights there. I just loved listening to both Lillian and Lauren talk about their process and about their passion. It's infectious, isn't it? How often do you listen to a podcast where you hear people who have dreams, are living their dreams, and watching them come true? I think that's the thing that I love more than anything is actually engaging and speaking with people who are doing the thing that they love, and in many cases they were put on earth to do. I really believe that, and I think that's just fantastic. That's why I love talking to people with such energy and verve and excitement and positivity and joy, real joy for the arts, like Lauren and Lillian. So again, Horse Girls is available in limited, I think it'll have a limited theater release, and it will probably be simultaneously or shortly thereafter released on streaming platforms that on July 17th, which is Friday next week. So please, if you see it come up, give it a watch. Give it a watch. After listening to this, give it a watch. I don't think our conversation spoiled all the elements that happened in Horse Girls. So it's still a fantastic film to discover for yourself, and it's family friendly. And I hope that it evokes or provokes conversation. Maybe the situation between some of the characters, between Sandy and Margarita in the film, maybe you can relate to that. Maybe that's a conversation you may need to have in your family, in your home. And I hope that Horse Girls, shows like this, I hope that they become a catalyst for those discussions to happen. I don't think enough of them are happening, so I think that would be a great and positive result of watching this film as a family. That's enough out of me. I hope each of you are doing well. I hope you're happy in your lives. If you're not happy, I hope you're willing to do something about it. Sometimes you just have to find your get up and go. I remember that lyric from Aerosmith, my get up and go must have got up and went. And there are days, weeks, months sometimes where I feel like that's the case for me. My get up and go must have got up and went. And I don't remember when that happened. It just gradually sneaks up on you. But it's never too late to start again. And I want to hammer this home for you. I'm not happy with my girth, my corpulence, my size, my BMI, my body mass index. I used to be a skinny dude with, you could grate cheese on my abs, and I'm not trying to brag myself up, but I've clearly upgraded my 6-pack abs to a keg. And so I'm not, I have a low self-esteem with my body image. I'm insecure about the way I look. You know, you won't catch me ripping my shirt off at the barbecue and jumping in the pool or on the slip and slide. I'm insecure. I've been insecure for years. Not happy with the weight I've put on. And so I decided enough was enough. It's time to do something for me. And I started going to the gym. And you need to know something about me, and maybe you can relate. Every molecule of my body is screaming at the top of its lungs, don't go to the gym, don't go to the gym, don't go to the gym, don't go to the gym. So I went anyway. And then I kept going and kept going and kept going. Folks, I went 6 days in a row. It's just a start. Every great journey begins with the first step. This is just the first step for me. I'm not interested in tracking my waistline. I'm not interested in tracking how much pounds I lose per week. I don't want to get that myopic about it. I just want to incorporate this change in my lifestyle, spend a little bit of time on the treadmill, a little bit of time on free weights, and try to help myself feel better, sleep better, feel better, fit into clothes I used to fit into. And I think that's all part of the journey. That's all part of the journey of looking after ourselves and being the caretakers of our mental health and our mental well-being. The science is there. If you live a physically active lifestyle, you're less likely to be depressed. You're less likely to have a lot of the features of depression and low self-esteem. I know that. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is so sleepy and drunk on Taco Bell. That's me. That's me. So if you're struggling, I am with you there. I am struggling a lot with my physical health, my physical well-being. It's hard, but it's worth it. I'm convinced it's worth it. So I don't want to say too much more than that. Enough about myself. I hope you guys have a great week. I've got some exciting guests still to come. And so I hope you'll stay tuned. There's still some great podcasts coming throughout the rest of the summer. Anyway, enough out of me. I hope you have a great week. Look after yourselves, and I'll see you next week on the Fixate Binge Podcast. Thanks.